Before I tell you the 7 words you must never ignore, I want to start with a truth. Most people learn too late hidden red flags are often the most dangerous because they slip into your life quietly, disguised as harmless words, casual behavior, or just how he is. When a man texts something that feels off, even if it sounds small or not a big deal, it can actually reveal the deeper truth of how he sees you, where he places you in his priorities, and what role he plans for you in his life. Most people overlook these tiny signals because they're hoping for the best. They're already emotionally invested, or they don't want to seem dramatic. But the truth is this: the earliest signs of a man's intentions almost always show up in subtle communication patterns long before any major heartbreak happens. A hidden red flag isn't about what a man says once. It's about what consistently appears in his messages. Maybe he replies only when he's bored. Maybe he suddenly becomes sweet after ignoring you. Maybe he sends flirty texts late at night but disappears during the day. These behaviors don't come with a loud warning. They come quietly, wrapped in a convenient excuse. And that's exactly why so many people fall for them. A man doesn't need to insult you to disrespect you. Sometimes the disrespect is found in the pauses between messages, in the lack of interest he shows, in the way he avoids commitment while enjoying your attention. When you pay attention to these small signals, you begin to understand something important. A man's words may be soft, but his patterns are loud. A text that seems simple can expose whether he sees you as someone valuable or someone replaceable. It can show whether he's emotionally available or emotionally withholding. It can reveal whether he wants to build something with you or simply wants the comfort of your validation without giving anything meaningful in return. Every message carries a piece of truth. If you know how to read it, people who ignore the red flags early usually end up dealing with bigger pain later. That's why listening to these little clues matters. A man who sends unclear, dismissive, or inconsistent texts is often showing you the same inconsistency you'll experience in a relationship with him. In relationships, patterns escalate, not disappear. If he avoids commitment through text, he'll avoid it in person. If he dismisses your importance now, he'll overlook your needs later. Recognizing hidden red flags is not about being paranoid. It's about valuing your emotional safety. It's about understanding that your intuition is not a weakness. It's one of your greatest strengths. The moment a text makes you uncomfortable, confused, or unimportant, that feeling is communication too. It's your inner warning system telling you something is off. Instead of silencing it, trust it. Because the earlier you recognize a red flag, the quicker you can step back, protect your heart, and choose someone who communicates with intention, clarity, and respect. Hidden red flags are only hidden when you don't pay attention. The moment you start listening, everything becomes clear. Self-worth over validation is one of the most powerful shifts a woman can make in her love life because it changes the entire way she interprets a man's actions, especially his messages. When you rely on validation, every text becomes a measurement of your value. A quick reply feels like approval, a late reply feels like rejection, and a vague message becomes something you overthink until it drains your peace. In this mindset, you start waiting for his attention as if his response defines your importance. But when you operate from self-worth, the entire dynamic transforms because you no longer need a man's temporary attention to confirm who you are. Self-worth means you know your value before he ever texts you. It means you don't panic when he takes long to reply. You don't lose yourself in trying to decode his mixed signals. You don't chase clarity from someone who can't even offer consistency. Instead of asking, why hasn't he replied? You start asking, why would I invest in someone who communicates like this? That shift is everything because it puts the power back into your hands. You stop trying to win him over and start evaluating whether he deserves access to you. When you prioritize validation, you end up tolerating behavior that's beneath you. You excuse laziness, inconsistency, and emotional distance because you're afraid of losing the crumbs he gives. You tell yourself, at least he texts sometimes, or maybe he's just busy even when his actions clearly show you you're not a priority. In the pursuit of validation, you make your standards smaller so he can fit into them. But self-worth does the opposite. It expands your standards so only a quality man can meet them. A man who truly values you will never make you question your place in his life. He won't disappear and reappear when it suits him. He won't use vague phrases to keep you guessing. He won't breadcrumb you with just enough attention to keep you around. A man who sees your worth isn't afraid to show effort because he knows your presence is a privilege, not a default. Self-worth teaches you that it is better to walk away from someone who can show up than to abandon yourself waiting for someone who never will. It teaches you that loneliness is not the enemy, being with the wrong person is. It teaches you that you deserve a love that's consistent, intentional, and clear. And most importantly, it teaches you that your value doesn't rise and fall with the attention of a man who can barely decide what he wants. When you stop looking for validation, you stop attracting men who take advantage of your need for it. You begin to attract people who match your confidence, your effort, and your emotional maturity. Because you're no longer asking, will he choose me? You're asking, is he even someone worth choosing? That question alone protects your heart far more than any unpredictable text ever could. Manipulation in relationships rarely begins with grand gestures or dramatic behavior. It usually starts quietly, through subtle wording, vague messages, or patterns that seem harmless at first glance. That's why understanding manipulation through text is so important, because modern relationships often unfold through a screen long before they unfold in real life. A man who wants control doesn't always show it directly. Instead, he uses uncertainty, inconsistency, and emotional push and pull to influence how you feel, how you respond, and how much of yourself you give. One of the biggest signs of early manipulation is selective attention. He texts you intensely one day, showering you with compliments, interest, and emotional warmth. Then the next day he disappears or becomes cold, distant, or uninterested. This inconsistency isn't accidental. It creates confusion, and confusion is where manipulators gain power. When you don't know what to expect from him, you become more focused on trying to keep his good side alive. You try harder, you adjust your behavior, you overthink your responses. Before you even realize it, you start giving more effort than he does, just to bring back the version of him that made you feel wanted for a moment. Another manipulation tactic is selective vulnerability. He shares just enough emotional information to make you feel connected, but not enough to be truly open or accountable. He might tell you about his past heartbreaks, his struggles, or how he's afraid of getting hurt again. This makes you sympathetic, patient, and willing to lower your expectations. It convinces you to accept his inconsistency because you feel like you're helping him heal. Yet every time you ask for clarity, he shuts down or uses his past as a shield. You end up feeling guilty for wanting basic respect. Then there's the classic hot and cold message game. When he wants attention, he's charming, flirty, and emotionally present. When he feels like he has enough control, he pulls back, giving you silence or vague replies. This pattern is designed to keep you uncertain about where you stand, and uncertainty keeps you hooked because you start craving the high of his attention, even though he's the one creating the low. Manipulation also shows up in how he avoids responsibility. If you express your needs or feelings, he'll twist the conversation to make you feel dramatic, needy, or unreasonable. He'll say things like you're overthinking, you always assume the worst, or you're too emotional. These phrases are not about resolving the issue. They are about silencing you. They make you question your own judgment, which is exactly what a manipulator wants. The more you doubt yourself, the easier you are to influence. One of the most dangerous forms of manipulation through text is intermittent reinforcement, rewarding you randomly. He'll ignore you for hours or days, then suddenly send a sweet message as if nothing happened. He might disappear all weekend, then text you Monday morning with "Good morning, beautiful." This unpredictability creates emotional dependency because your brain starts chasing those rare positive moments. It's the same psychology that keeps people pulling the lever on a slot machine, hoping for the next reward. And then there's the tactic of keeping you as an option while making you feel like you're the one being chosen. He'll hint at future plans but never commit. He'll talk about someday but never about this week. He'll flirt just enough to keep you close but never enough to make it real. This is manipulation disguised as romance. What makes these patterns so dangerous is that they don't feel like manipulation at first. They feel like potential. They feel like chemistry. They feel like something that's almost right and just needs a little more time. But manipulation thrives in almost. It grows in unclear intentions, mixed signals, and emotional inconsistency. The moment you recognize these patterns in his messages, understand this truth, you are not seeing random behavior. You are seeing the beginning of a dynamic where he gains control by keeping you emotionally unsteady. And the only way to protect yourself is to step back, reclaim your clarity, and choose someone who doesn't rely on confusion to keep you close. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your peace, your dignity, and your sense of self. They tell the world how you deserve to be treated. But the moment you start tolerating unclear communication, half-hearted effort, or disrespectful messages from a man, you begin to compromise those boundaries without even realizing it. The truth is, most emotional damage in relationships doesn't happen because someone is cruel. It happens because someone crosses your boundaries slowly while you stay silent, hoping things will improve. That silence becomes permission. When a man's texts make you feel anxious instead of valued, uncertain instead of appreciated, or confused instead of secure, that's where boundary setting becomes essential. Emotional boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about controlling your access to pain. They help you recognize what kind of energy you will allow into your life and what kind you will immediately walk away from. If a man's messages consistently drain you, frustrate you, or make you question your worth, then your boundaries are whispering. This connection is costing you more than it's giving. A man who respects emotional boundaries won't play guessing games with you. He won't disappear and come back expecting you to be available. He won't give you mixed signals just to keep your interest. He won't send unclear messages that leave you overthinking for hours. A man who respects you communicates with intention. When he says he'll do something, he follows through. When he says he cares, he shows it consistently, not just when it's convenient. Boundaries filter out the men who treat relationships like a casual hobby instead of a serious responsibility. But many people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear losing the connection. They worry that if they speak up, he'll leave. But the truth is, anyone who disappears because you asked for clarity or consistency was never emotionally invested to begin with. Boundaries don't push the right man away. They push the wrong man out of the space he never deserved. They protect your emotional energy from being wasted on someone who doesn't match your intentions. When you don't enforce boundaries, you start shrinking your needs to make the other person comfortable. You tell yourself it's fine, I don't want too much, even though it hurts. You accept unanswered questions because you're scared to ask them. You tolerate disrespectful messages because you'd rather hold on to the bare minimum than risk losing him. But every time you lower your standards, you betray yourself a little more. Having emotional boundaries means knowing that your time, your feelings, and your heart are not playgrounds for someone else's indecision. It means knowing that a man doesn't get to dip in and out of your life based on his mood. It means not responding to messages that make you feel small. It means saying no when something doesn't feel right, even if it's uncomfortable. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. You open them for people who show respect, and you close them on anyone who brings chaos. A healthy connection doesn't require you to constantly explain your needs or defend your feelings. It naturally aligns with your boundaries because the right person values your emotional world just as much as his own. When you protect your boundaries, you protect your peace. And when you protect your peace, you protect your future from anyone who isn't capable of loving you with clarity, effort, and respect. Respect in communication is not about grand gestures or poetic messages. It is shown through the simplest words, the smallest actions, and the consistency behind them. The way a man texts you reveals the truth about his attitude toward you long before he ever says the words, "I care about you." When a man respects you, his communication reflects it effortlessly. He doesn't text only when he's bored, lonely, or looking for convenience. He reaches out because he genuinely values your presence. He doesn't treat you as a backup plan. He treats you as someone important enough to prioritize. A respectful man communicates with clarity. He doesn't send half answers or vague replies that leave you guessing what he meant. He makes an effort to be understood. He doesn't hide behind excuses like "I'm just bad at texting" when he knows communication is the foundation of connection. Instead, he shows up in a way that makes you feel secure, not confused. Your mind stays peaceful, not anxious. You don't have to chase him, decode him, or constantly wonder where you stand, because respect removes confusion. It brings stability. Respect also shows up in how he handles your emotions. A disrespectful man will dismiss your feelings, call you sensitive, or make you feel like you're wrong for expressing your needs. A respectful man listens, really listens. He doesn't use your vulnerability against you. He doesn't turn conversations into battles or accuse you of overreacting when you're just seeking clarity. You can express yourself without fear of being judged or belittled. When a man respects you, your emotions feel safe in his hands. Consistency is another major sign of respect. Anyone can be charming for a few days. Anyone can send sweet messages when they want attention. But respect is proven over time in the everyday patterns that reveal who he really is. A man who respects you doesn't disappear without explanation. He doesn't leave you waiting for hours or days wondering whether you matter. He communicates because he understands that your time is valuable, your peace is fragile, and your feelings deserve protection, not disruption. When a man respects you, he also respects your boundaries. He doesn't pressure you into anything you're uncomfortable with. He doesn't get irritated when you express a limit. He doesn't push, manipulate, or guilt trip you. Instead, he honors the space you need, the pace you choose, and the standards you hold. A man who respects you sees your boundaries not as obstacles, but as signs that you value yourself, and that makes him value you more healthy. Communication doesn't drain you. It nourishes you. It leaves you feeling appreciated, not used. It brings clarity, not chaos. It feels stable, not unpredictable. And the truth is, a man who respects you will make sure his messages reflect exactly that. You will never have to force him to care, pressure him to communicate, or beg him to be consistent. Respect doesn't need to be demanded. It shows itself through effortless, everyday actions that make you feel chosen, valued, and safe. Everything comes down to one truth. The way a man communicates with you shows exactly how he feels about you, what he's capable of giving, and where he places you in his life. You don't need to wait for a major argument or a dramatic moment to understand his intentions. His patterns, his effort, and his consistency reveal everything. The small messages you overlook, the confusion you tolerate, the excuses you accept, these become the blueprint of the relationship you'll end up with. You deserve a connection that brings clarity, not chaos. You deserve a man who doesn't hide behind excuses, who doesn't make you feel like an option, who doesn't treat your emotions like they're inconvenient. You deserve someone who communicates with honesty, respect, and intention, someone who shows you through his actions that your presence matters. The reason to pay attention to these 7 words, to the red flags, to the manipulation patterns, to the lack of boundaries, and to the inconsistencies is simple. Your peace is priceless. Your time is valuable. Your heart is irreplaceable. Leaving the moment you recognize disrespect doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. Walking away from someone who plays with your emotions doesn't make you difficult. It makes you strong. Protecting your standards doesn't push the right man away. It filters out the wrong ones. The right person will never make you feel unsure of where you stand. He will never keep you in confusion, never make you chase clarity, never leave you waiting for effort he wasn't willing to give. When a man truly values you, you feel it. You don't have to force it. And when he doesn't value you, it's better to walk away early than waste months on potential that was never real. Your life, your love, and your energy are too precious to hand over to someone who doesn't treat them with care. Pay attention. Listen to the signs. And never forget, the moment a man's communication starts costing you your peace, that's the moment you choose yourself and walk away.